to the 2020 Republican National Convention.
US President Donald Trump has launched his re-election bid in much the same way as his first campaign 4 years ago, with a verbal attack on China.
Our country can go in a horrible, horrible direction or in an even greater direction. And before the plague came in from China, that's where we were going. We were going in a direction like we had never seen.
He came to power promising to reduce the US trade deficit with China. He said he would force Beijing to give up unfair trade practices that he says have helped its economy grow at the expense of American businesses. After many rounds of back-and-forth tariffs and negotiations, both sides reached a Phase 1 trade agreement in February. Under the deal, China is to increase purchases of US goods and services by $200 billion by 2021. It's also pledged greater protection of intellectual property rights of foreign companies operating in China and better access to Chinese financial markets. A much-awaited review of this agreement was supposed to take place in mid-August but was delayed by Washington. The talks finally took place this week. Top trade officials from both sides reaffirmed their commitments. But what's happening on the ground tells a different story. Chinese purchases of US goods have actually dropped by $5.4 billion so far this year compared to the same period of 2019. And Beijing says Washington is bullying companies like Huawei and TikTok because their American counterparts are unable to compete against these Chinese giants.
These companies are all industry leaders and exceptional international market players. Some US politicians harbour fears towards the rise and success of non-US companies. Hence, they never hesitate to wield state power to suppress them in every possible way. This is a denial of the market economy and fair competition principles that the United States has touted all the way through.
Chinese officials say they will support Chinese companies like TikTok in their legal battle against Washington's attempts to ban them. That's likely to worsen the already strained ties between both sides. And with the presidential election approaching, analysts don't expect an olive branch from the US. They say economic cooperation between the world's two largest economies is unlikely to improve with or without the Phase 1 deal. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Well, for more on this, Josef Gregory Mahoney joins us now from Memphis, Tennessee. He's a professor of politics at East China Normal University in Shanghai. Welcome to the program, Professor. Now, the US and China say this trade deal is still intact, as we heard in the story there, but why do the two sides seem committed to easing their trade war when pretty much every other aspect of their bilateral relationship is at an all-time low?
Well, I think the thing we have to increasingly consider is that while China wants to ease some of the danger associated with the difficult relations between China and the United States, and let's be clear, the U.S. has been pressing China on two fronts: trade, but also security in terms of the ongoing engagements and near engagements in South China Sea. So whether or not this is a 1-2 punch or separate effort, it has put a lot of pressure on Beijing. That said, Trump is at a national convention this week, and he has very little to show for it. And I think that we can see his willingness to talk with China presently as proof that despite his tough rhetoric on the opening night, that he's basically begging for something that sells a win during the convention, when he's still slipping in the polls with U.S. economy down by a third, with tens of millions unemployed. The fact of the matter is, at this point, Trump needs China more than China needs him.
Okay. Now,
consequently, I think Beijing...
Sorry to interrupt. Some analysts have speculated that China is biding its time when it comes to implementing drastic changes to their trade policies. They say they're waiting to see if Donald Trump, in fact, stays in power come November. But do you think that the US's tough stance on Chinese trade policy will likely change if Joe Biden becomes president in November?
I think everyone is waiting for the elections, and any positioning you see now, whether in Beijing, Hanoi, New Delhi, the UAE, Jerusalem, Moscow, Belarus, anywhere, illustrates attempts to hedge carefully, calculated strategic interest with the understanding that policies may need to shift considerably and quickly, even if Trump is reelected. So, I think that while we will see some clear differences in policies between, say, a potential Biden or Trump administration, what we would likely see in Biden is a different type of pressure, maybe not so much escalation, maybe a return to sort of multilateralism we saw with the TPP, maybe as TPP 2.0. But I don't think we would see any major de-escalations in Biden's first 100 days. And we may even see some dangerous shows of force.
Okay, now these latest trade talks were one of the first friendly encounters between the two countries in recent months. But do you expect this goodwill might flow onto the other flashpoints in their relationship, such as the sanctions that each country has imposed over Beijing's crackdown on Hong Kong and Donald Trump's attack on Chinese technology?
I don't think so. I think that those things are well entrenched at this point, and that any sort of de-escalation will show a weakness in one of Trump's signature policies at this point, and would expose him to attacks from Joe Biden.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. But Professor Josef Gregory Mahoney, thank you so much again for joining us on the program.